met a gypsy.
Yeah, and then so when did the training of the Troy Lee team happen?
God, when was that? Man, it was when, well, Cole was on the team, Christian Craig, Shane McElrath, Jesse Nelson.
Was Will on the team then?
No.
Okay.
No. So it was after Will raced.
Yeah.
But, yeah, when those guys were all babies.
Yeah, and how did that come about? Obviously through the friendship with Troy.
Yeah.
But what did you feel like you could add in that training, or did you where was training even at kind of in that era? Because it's so different now, like from when that time to now, like the whole training and the facility, like it's such a different deal. So what was the training sphere like then?
Yeah. It's well, basically, I mean, how it came about was Troy and Tyler Keefe, they basically hit me up one day. I think maybe Troy was even in Europe or somewhere else, and he called me, and they were like, "Hey, you want to train our guys? Like, we need somebody to get them in shape." And I've always kind of prided myself on being in really good shape, and always just really trained myself. I was into weightlifting and stuff a lot, like in high school and after high school and into BMX. And I just always trained myself and always prided myself on being in good shape. And I think, so maybe that's why Troy hit me up and was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I was like, at the beginning, honestly, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Like, I don't know. Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to do this, or if I want the work and the responsibility. And really what it came down to is I just reached out to a handful of friends and people that I trust and asked them, really. I'm like, "Do you think I should do this? Like, do you think I'm qualified to do this?"
That's a good way to do it.
And all of them were like, "I think you should, Brian. Like, I think you should do it. I think you don't, I think you take for granted what you know and what you've done and stuff. And I think you could help and add something to these kids' programs." So I was like, "All right, well, yeah, let's give it a go," And so I agreed to it with Tyler and Troy. And I remember the first time I met, Jesse and the rest of the riders, I remember sitting down with them and I was like, "All right, like, I'm not claiming I know everything there is to know about training, because I don't." You might ask me shit and I might not know the answer to it, but let's see how it goes, and just kind of roll with it. And what I kind of quickly learned was that these guys didn't really know that much. And so, even though I didn't feel like I was like the guru of training, and I had this huge knowledge base on everything there that maybe I thought there was to know, is that I knew a lot more than they knew. So it was I think it kind of, for me, it's hard because I think my whole life was racing. It was all about like trying to be the best, trying to win. And I got to that point, right? So in my head, I feel like if you want to talk about bikes or racing, bicycles, like, hey, I know I was at the highest level and I made it here. But if you want to talk about anything else, like I might know some stuff, but I was never here. And I feel like usually when I try to do something, like I want to be like the best at it, or try to be as best as I can at it. And, so like, I'm not going to sit here and try to debate like, how to build a motor. Like I don't know shit about building a motor or, something like that. Like, I don't know. Like, I mean, we could talk about suspension. I know how suspension works, but, if you start bringing in like, the forces of the engine, like, I'm out, right? I'm not going to debate it with you. So yeah, anyways, that's kind of the gist of the training thing and how it started.
And then what was the experience like? Did you enjoy working with the guys? Like, did you see what were you? How were you training back then? Because like nowadays, you just get a Garmin and you get your heart rate strap, and then you stay in zone 2 for a certain amount of time, and then you do intervals up to this zone. Like, it's pretty like scientific now what you need to do, and it's like based on what you are required for your sport, right?
Yeah.
So, but that wouldn't have been the case back when you were training.
No. I mean, I think it really depends on what you're training for too, right? Like my races were relatively short. So, you know, how I'm going to train is obviously different than a cross country guy is going to train, or a guy racing, you know, GPs versus a guy racing, you know, Supercross. But I mean, I always just did what I thought was needed for me, and once I kind of found that recipe, I really stuck with it. Like
Yeah.
I didn't sway from it too much. You know, if it's working, I don't feel like I need to change too much shit up.
Yeah.
But some of the biggest things I always found with some of the motocross kids was, well, I used to always tell them, like, you know, just because it worked for Carmichael doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I'm great friends with Ernesto Fonseca, and I know Ernesto used to always tell me, like, he hated going to Ricky's house.
Yeah.
You know, like, Ernie's so funny. He'd just be like, fuck, I hated going to that fucker's house, man. He would just make me ride, you know, 3 tanks of gas, and I was just fucking dead. And then we'd have to do it again. And I hated it, right? And that didn't, you know, maybe work for Ernie. It worked for Ricky, but
Yeah, Ricky loved it.
Everybody's different, you know? So I felt like with these kids, you know, it took a little while to really learn them and kind of see what worked for them, or what made them physically, mentally, you know, like have an advantage, or take the next step forward. Or, you know, like I used to laugh at Christian, you know, Christian Craig, because he was like naturally gifted.
Amazing.
Like,
yeah,
unbelievable, whether it was in the gym or on the bicycle.
Oh, really?
Or in
So
the
even fitness
pool.
wise,
he was really good to a certain point, because I think he has so much natural ability, just genetically, whatever, right? Like he's like really high, but to get him to go past that was always a struggle for me. Yeah, like he kind of would, I feel like, break mentally a bit when it was like past his
comfort zone kind of thing. Yeah.
Whereas there was like other guys like that would just kind of maybe not be super great, but would just keep grinding, right? Like just put their head down and just keep going, and, you know, not crack.
Yeah.
I remember actually one time Tyler Keefe was like, "Hey, I want you to just fucking just make these guys suffer. Like just like make them suffer mentally, physically."
Yeah.
I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." I was like, "Okay." So I was like, "Okay, boys, you know, Wednesday we're gonna meet at the bottom of the San Juan Trail, and we're gonna do a big ride."
And that's it. That's all the info.
I'm like, I go, bring a lot of water and bring a lot of food. And they're like, okay. And, you know, Quinn Cody?
Nah.
Quinn Cody, he works for KTM now, but he's done like Dakar and.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's an off-road guy. He's badass, done, you know, Baja 1000 and all that stuff a bunch of times. But at the time, he wanted to come. He had heard that I was going to take these kids. I can't remember. I must have told him. And he's like, I want to come. And so he came with us. Long story short is we did this ride. You know, I just took him on a death march. And
death march.
Yeah. And I remember halfway through it, Christian was like, this is fucking stupid. Why are we doing this? You know, I'm just like, keep going, buddy. There's no turning back now. We're like in the middle of nowhere. It's halfway through the ride, right? Like either direction you go, it's going to be a long ways back. So. But Jesse was great. Like Jesse loved the outdoors. He's kind of a mountain man, like by nature, I think. And he loved, like we got done with the ride, and, you know, Christian was always the guy who's like back to his car, in his car, gone.
Yeah,
Like, just see you guys. I'm not even saying bye. Just I'm done. Training's over. I'm done.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And me and Jesse were just like hanging out, you know, waiting, because Quinn was like, where the fuck is Quinn? Like, there was no turns. He couldn't have got lost. And then eventually we like started going back up the hill. Like, he ended up crashing, like tacoing his front wheel and having to walk. But yeah, just, you know, testing kids in different ways and just trying to figure out, you know, what's best for them, really, right, at the races.
Yeah.
But it was fun. I guess to answer your question in short, I enjoyed it. I loved going to the races, and you know, I loved when they did good, right? Like, I was stoked for them.
Yeah,
that was the best feeling, to just be a part of, like, you know, somebody's success. You know, it's cool.
We're excited to announce the launch of our new membership site, GYPSYTales.com, packed with exclusive content and perks that you won't find anywhere else. This is your chance to become a part of the Gypsy Gang. And as a special bonus, if you sign up to an annual membership, you'll be entered into the draw to win our custom-built TC125. Gypsy Gang.